Hi. So let's try to understand what is the cash box. Now, before we actually try to understand what the cash box is, it would be good to understand why the cash box exists. Because if we understand why it exists, then the rationale for once the rationale for the cash box existence is clear, then the what is easier to explain. So let's start with what OpenDAO first does. And OpenDAO is essentially a bridge between real world, that is off-chain assets, and on-chain assets. So this is OpenDAO. And essentially what we are saying is instead of just using on-chain assets as collateral, we can now use real world assets such as property, shares, invoices, etc., as collateral. So to make this clearer, and give an example. So right now, if you compare something like Compound, on Compound, it's a money market. You can collateralize ETH, WBTC, etc. You can put in as collateral, and you can borrow other coins, DAI, USDC, USDT. Okay. Now, both of these or all of these things on Compound are currently on chain, which means that if you don't repay, then it's fairly easy for a liquidator to liquidate you. What that means is if you do not repay, then a liquidator will keep on monitoring what your position is. And once it exceeds a certain threshold, they can take possession of your asset, sell it off on chain, and the whole system balances itself because the debt basically gets repaid by the liquidator, and they take your collateral and they keep it. Now, where we differ, or where OpenDAO differs, is instead of real world collateral, we are saying that we will use a house or shares or any other real world asset as collateral. Now, the obvious question then becomes, how is liquidation handled? So for example, if you take a house, and obviously it will be represented as a token first, and the token is used as collateral, or share, it's represented as collateral. Then if you don't repay, then how does the liquidation happen? Now, in theory, you can have the same system of liquidators who can keep monitoring your borrowing levels. And if you do not repay, then they can take possession of your collateral tokens, okay? And they can repay the debt and the system comes on balance. But over here, we are not on chain, we are off chain. So the key question becomes, what's the point of having the off-chain collateral for the liquidators? But more importantly, where can they sell it off? Okay. So technically a liquidator can try to take possession of the off-chain property, etc., but it will be too hard for them. And what we really want is a more elegant and seamless solution. So essentially, if we can answer this question, where can a liquidator sell off the collateral which they have foreclosed upon, then the rest of the system is pretty much the same. So if we had a pool of money which was sitting out there and saying that, hey, if you have any foreclosed tokens which represent real world property or shares, etc., then you can come to me and I will always buy it. Okay. If that was the case, then a liquidator can simply present their real world asset tokens to this box, and they can take their money, which is DAI, USDT, USDC, etc., etc., and walk away. And then it becomes the responsibility of the box to deal with the on-chain off-chain enforcement uh, or any recovery procedures. Now, generally speaking, it doesn't mean that if somebody is not repaying their loan, the asset itself has gone bad. The asset might be fine. There are two scenarios: the asset is fine or the asset is not fine. In general, what will happen before we actually accept any real world asset as collateral, we would basically have an SPV structure or a fund structure, or we would partner with somebody who has a fund, like Realty is a good example actually. There are a lot of other funds which are trying to tokenize properties, so we can work with them. Previous venture Fast Concrete was in a similar play. So we can work with this Concrete or any other player, partner like Realty, etc. They have tokenized property, and their shares or their registry is represented in the form of tokens. So anybody who has these tokens can then do their KYC, AML, etc., and get recorded on the registry as a property fraction owner. Or if it was a listed share, they can then just simply trigger a sell order and get their cash. And the cash can be converted back to stables, which we are working on a bridge to do all of that in a seamless manner. So essentially, this box becomes like the linchpin of the system. The box provides on-chain liquidity for the off-chain asset. Okay, so what we are really saying is, if you are comfortable with the asset which is put up as collateral, then you can simply become a buyer of last resort. Put your money in the cash box and you become a perpetual counterparty to the collateral which is used. So you are saying that, okay, hey, liquidator, don't worry about what to do with the collateral tokens. I will always buy it from you. And once I buy it, there are a couple of things which you can do. You can always sort of present your property tokens, which are now in the box, and take them to the fund manager and take possession of the underlying asset. Or you can always cycle it back in and sell it to the box again to somebody else who has put their money in the box and get your stable and walk away. Now, the box sort of plays a very important role because that sort of provides the key bridge. So the box is really the bridge which links the real world asset with on-chain, and it becomes like a very important part of the puzzle. So we have to incentivize people who put the stables in the box as counterparty to the real world collateral. Now, why would they do it? For a few different reasons. One, they believe in the quality of the underlying collateral. They will be usually getting it at a discount because whenever somebody is selling this over here, they will be forced to sell at a bit of a discount, which means that you are getting real world asset fractions at a discount to their true value. You're getting some fees, but also we will be rewarding the people who buy the box tokens with our governance tokens, which is open. So if you have Cashbox tokens, let's call it CBT, you can stake them with us and we will give you rewards in the form of open tokens. So bulk of our rewards for open tokens are likely to be distributed in this fashion, primarily because this is probably the most key action which is necessary to be taken for the whole system to work properly. I mean, the system can still work, but this sort of makes it very seamless. Then the liquidator doesn't have to worry about where to sell his asset tokens, and the whole thing becomes seamless and programmatically enforceable. And it becomes the responsibility for the box tokens holders to either hold on to their tokens, the asset tokens which they've received in the box, or sell it off. So that's a quick explanation of how the Cashbox tokens work.